Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be making 50 pizza pockets for my freezer and for my kids to eat through lunches or on weekends with their friends. So at the beginning I am starting to get my yeast proofing in my KitchenAid there. I have some warm water. I will leave a basic pizza dough down below in the description box along with the steps I did afterwards. So now I'm going to be chopping up a red onion I had sitting in my fridge to use up and a bell pepper. I'm wanting to saute these before I make the sauce because I want them nice and tender to hide veggies in these because I'm not adding any raw veggies into the pockets. You can if you like that, but if I chop them up finely and saute them in the sauce, then my kids are more likely to eat it. So I added the red onion to the pan on the stove with some butter, and now I'm chopping up a bell pepper. You can use any color. Like I said, you can add mushrooms, spinach, shredded carrots. I've done that before to hide veggies. Any veggies you have on hand in the sauce, it will be delicious. I will say that if it is carrots, I have done or anything really hard and chewy like that, I would do it in my food processor and kind of get it almost like a puree, just very finely chopped, and then add that to the sauce. Once you add this to the pan, I'm going to let it saute for a few minutes and get nice and tender and some color on it before I start working on the dough. You can saute your veggies in anything. You can use butter or olive oil would work great. I just like the flavor of butter with the veggies. I think it just enhances them. And then once you saute these, get them nice and tender. It's great to be multitasking, having something prepped in the oven or on the stove while you do something else. It's just key to meal prepping, I believe, or to freezer meals. Now I'm going to be starting on the pizza dough. It's just the basic water, yeast, salt, olive oil, and flour. The flour I am using, I get at Costco. I believe it's the Lehigh brand. It's an unbleached flour all-purpose. There's like a bread flour or the all-purpose. I have used both in breads, pizzas, pies, cookies, crusts, whatever, and they work great either way. The best flour I have read up on is the King Arthur one. They don't have it at my location when I was shopping, so this is what I have on hand. And you're just gonna let this dough mix until it becomes nice and soft. I do add some sourdough discard to it to give it some extra flavor. This isn't a long ferment, so it's not going to be a full-on sourdough pizza crust. It just adds some extra nutrients, and so then I can get my sourdough starter low and feed it for it to rise for my next recipe. So you're just going to have this mixing. Next, I'm going to be chopping, ooh, that flung up at me, some fresh garlic to add to the sauce. You can use granulated garlic or garlic powder, but fresh is the key, I feel like, to this sauce. Garlic has so many benefits. It strengthens the immune system, prevents heart disease, is anti-inflammatory, improves bone health. It has antioxidants, it's anti-cancer. It has so many benefits. I don't get when I see recipes that calls for 1 to 2 cloves of garlic when you're already breaking a whole head of garlic. I just use the whole head in most of my recipes. So adding this garlic to these veggies in the pan that I have sauteing, you can see there is some nice golden color on them, and in the bottom of my pan, that color is flavor. I think we lack that in a lot of our food. Even when you brown meat, you want to get it nice and brown, even your chicken, and then it adds so much flavor. I'm adding a can of tomato paste to help thicken the sauce. The jar next to it is my homegrown home canned tomato sauce, which is delicious, but it tends to be on the waterier side. So adding a whole can of tomato paste just helps thicken it up. I want this sauce to be quite thick so it doesn't ooze out, or when you bite into the pizza pocket that it will gush out all over you and burn you. So having a thicker sauce I think helps with that. And then there's my homegrown home canned tomato sauce, a quart of it. And then I'm going to be adding the basic salt, pepper, and then 2 herbs I'm adding is oregano and basil. And I add a good heaping tablespoon of each of those. That's another thing I feel like we don't use enough is the herbs. It adds so much flavor and nutrients. It is a plant, so it's a plant point. Adding it to our sauces just give it so much flavor. This sauce, I will say, even my kids commented was one of the best they feel like I have made. They have eaten and devoured lots of these pizza pockets, and they keep telling me how it's so good and how the sauce just really helps everything heat up in the microwave, or you can use the air fryer, which we have, or the toaster oven. But why that sauce is thickening and all the flavors are blending, you're going to be rolling out your dough, just taking a section of it and letting this dough rest. It's nice and soft. When you let the dough rest, it allows the gluten strands to form slowly for a more of a chew, which is what I love in a pizza crust or dough. So you're going to roll it out to not too thin. I would say like 1/4 of an inch. It is because you need it to be substantial to hold all the toppings you're going to put in it and fold over and hold it. So after rolling it out, I end up squaring it off, so cutting off like the round pieces on the edge and the top, just to have a cleaner cut and be able to seal it better. And I do use those scraps. You'll see next, I will roll them into the next batch so that they're not going to waste. I just am setting there for now. This first one, I ended up making it into 4ths, which later on I'll end up doing 6. These were quite large. I mean, they were a good size for my teenage boys, but I think my youngest, who's a 7-year-old, she struggled eating a whole one. But we're going to add a good heaping tablespoon of this thick sauce. You can see how dark and thick, and it's full of nutrients. Sauce to each pizza pocket. And the toppings, as you can see there that I have, these are pizza sausages I got for a pizza party we had a few months ago. They have been in my freezer for a while, so I pulled them out for this recipe, but you can use any topping. You can use mushrooms, bell peppers, pepperoni, pineapple, ham, bacon, whatever your heart desires. This is just what I had on hand. I usually don't have this pizza sausage. I usually brown up some Italian sausage myself and store that in my freezer for a quick, easy grab for pizzas. But this is what I had. I ended up using all 3 of these packages to make 50 pizza pockets. And my kids, I think the first day ate about 8 of them, but they loved them. So you're going to seal them up, and I take a fork to it to kind of crimp it and really seal it so that the cheese and the sauce and any of the toppings don't ooze out of these pockets. And then I will place them on a cookie sheet. I end up using my silicone mat, but you can use parchment paper. I don't know if tinfoil would work. I haven't tried that, or even just the plain baking sheet. When I bake pizza, I do use just a plain baking sheet, but for these, I just use a silicone mat. And you repeat this process, pushing the filling up and then sealing them into the pockets and crimping them with a fork. If I were to go back, I would have made these with the cheese right after the sauce and then the sausage on top. You will see later on that the cheese kind of will ooze out of the slits that I make on the top for it to breathe. And then you just repeat that process over and over. So rolling out the dough, cutting and shaping it, and there's the scraps I added to it, and I just roll it right back up. Yeah, I would definitely try different toppings if you have someone who's a veggie lover like me, some diced tomatoes, mushrooms, peppers, pineapple. I don't know if you're a pineapple pizza person or not. Our family is. We love the pineapple, the sweet and savory combination. But rolling out the dough and shaping it again. I did this. I can't even remember how many times I did it, but I have a second bowl, as you can see there, of dough rising and underneath the other towel. And I think I was in the kitchen for about an hour to make all 50. And I think that was because I just kept having to put them in the oven, set the timer, take them out, and put the next batch in. But I wasn't standing here making them for an hour. It probably took about 30 minutes for me to make all of them, prep them, let them rise on the oven while I make the next batch. And so yeah, just repeating it, putting the cheese and sausage on, and it was delicious. Once I prepped enough to fill up 2 cookie sheets, I then melted a half a stick of butter and added some dried basil and granulated garlic and a pinch of salt to this butter mixture, and used a pastry brush to brush the tops of these pizza pockets. I feel like this is what made them so delicious. I don't know if any of you, depending on where you live, I don't have it here in Idaho, but Hungry Howie's back in Arizona, they had flavored garlic crust or Parmesan crust. It was like a butter mixture. Oh, it was so good. So this is what it reminded me of. And then I would do 2 slits on the top. And this is why I said I think if I were to do them, I would do the cheese right after the sauce and then the toppings, because some of the cheese would kind of bubble out of these slits and come out. It never like spilled out onto the cookie sheet. They kind of simmered down, but I would do that next time. Once those are in the oven, you just prep the next batch. And I started cutting them in 6 just to get more done at the same time. And you just repeat the process all over again. These pizza pockets freeze so well. You can wrap them in saran wrap or tin foil. I was actually super low on both of those, so I actually just ended up putting each pizza pocket inside a sandwich bag, Ziploc bag, and then labeling a big gallon Ziploc bag with what were in each of the bags, pizza pockets, and I labeled the date, February 2024. And then I would put I think it was 20 into each freezer bag. And so I had multiple freezer bags full of pizza pockets. One was in the house freezer, and then the rest of the 4 bags went into the chest freezer out in the garage, so that when we finished one, we just brought out a new bag, and I kind of knew how many bags I had total, so when I was getting low. But like I said, I did keep aside 10 of them to feed my kids lunch this day. You want to bake them at 450, and I did it for 20 minutes. I thought it was the perfect time to give them the golden brown crust, but as you can see, some of the cheese started coming out of the slits, but they stayed intact and no seals were broken. I let them cool for just a few minutes before removing them to the cooling rack, and once they were cool, I then packaged them up and put them in my freezer for a future lunch or snack for my kids. I still have 2 pans baking in the oven, but a total of 50 pizza pockets. I will leave the recipe down below, and thanks for joining me today.